Depression affects over 18 million adults in the United States in any given year and is the most prevalent, representing 99% of all mind-brain illnesses. It's the leading cause of disability for ages 15 to 44. What is going on in the brain when it's depressed? Join me today. We have two exceptional in-studio guests who are here to continue our conversation from last week. I'm Cherise Parton. This is Return to Eden. Welcome back. If you missed last week's episode on depression, please go back to the archives. You don't want to miss because it's going to buttress today's conversation. I've brought those guests back. Let me introduce them. Straight from the investigative team of Skywatch TV, best-selling author and co-author of Health Exposé, and international best-selling book Time Bomb, welcome Allie Henson.
Hi, everybody.
Thanks for coming back.
Thank you for having me.
Also weighing in on the conversation today, again, is a board-certified holistic health practitioner, a professional fitness and nutrition specialist, COO of Skywatch TV, and author of several best-selling books, including the internationally acclaimed book Time Bomb. Welcome, Joe Horn.
Hi, Cherise. Hey, everybody.
Hey.
Good to be back.
Hey, thank you guys so much for coming back. It was just way too much information to kind of compile into one show.
25 minutes wasn't enough to do all of depression, and it's just
shock.
A fruitless endeavor to have tried, right?
We did try. We tried. We failed, so we're back. Thanks for joining us. Thanks to the in-studio audience. So, Allie, we were talking about some of the things on depression, and so like food and seasonal depression, chronic depression, all those things. So, what are the genetic and evolutionary components to depression?
Genetic and evolutionary components.
Yeah.
I didn't know there were. No, I'm kidding. But people at home may have missed that. Genetic and evolutionary components to depression.
Well, first of all, another 25 minutes will probably not be enough to cover everything
but
there is to say. We're going to try. Genetically, it would be wrong to say that some people are not more predisposed toward depression than other people are, because this is handed down through our genetics. So the health that we hand down to our children can help to set them up to have less depression than maybe previous generations of our family. It can be genetically predisposed. Gut health is also highly intertwined with the level of depression. And so as we raise our children, this is after they've inherited the genes that we've passed down, the lifestyle that we teach them throughout their childhood can help to set them up to better combat, like, Joe was talking about the liver and the gut. Millions of nerves connect.
Yeah, last week we talked about liver function and how it plays a role.
Eye-opening,
But something you said, the young person may not express what they saw in their dad being clinically diagnosed as depression until he's 13, 14. And so I often, when I weigh in on conversations like this, it's not that I deny that genetic predisposition may not play a role in something like a person's worldview or the way that they feel. Grandpa talked an awful lot like dad. Dad talked an awful lot like son. But the reason, in my view, that some of this stuff doesn't manifest in depression like it did with dad until coming of age, getting into adolescence, isn't just hormonal. It's what you said. It's the fact that now a child who might already have genetics that are sitting in the bowel ready to activate get activated by terrible decision making in terms of the diet. The artificial sugars, sweeteners. Would go back to last week. We're not going to relitigate the liver, but the point is it may take some time for a child to eat enough cereal to incur enough pesticide overload to then start to experience the expressions of depressions, and it gets completely overlooked because then people say, he sure follows in his dad's footsteps. Now, let's just, in this fictitious story that I'm describing here, let's take little Billy and let's say that he were adopted out. And his adopted parents have no idea that grandpa and dad were ever depressed because he was raised on, let's say, local fresh fish in the Solomon Islands like the way that my wife was raised. And he got daily sunshine and activity. Some of that genetic predisposition fails under the collapsing power of diet, lifestyle. Does that make sense?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah. It's one of the first things when you're studying psychology or philosophy or any of that, this is a bit of a side tangent, but I'll be fast, is the whole conundrum of nature versus nurture. And it's one of the first things that they make you study. And it's this big debate. Is it what makes a man who he is? Is it nature or is it nurture? And I'm looking at it and I'm going, Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
Both. It's both.
That's
Yeah,
exactly
for
right.
sure.
I think it's a combo of both. There are a lot of twin studies where they take twins who were not raised in the same home.
Oh, wow.
And it's really funny. Different studies get different results on some of these kinds
Right.
of
That's
things.
interesting.
It is interesting to
Very
look into
The
for sure.
point is, from our vantage point, and I'm trying to clarify this,
Yeah.
at least the way I believe, is because I don't want viewers at home to think that a genetic test
Right.
is a roadmap.
Yeah, no, it's not.
no.
This is an eventuality.
Right.
Your grandpa had your dad, and so therefore you have the genetic strain you're going to experience. I don't like speaking that over people
Yeah.
Yeah,
right.
I
because
agree.
it's not a roadmap.
No,
Think of
for
it
sure.
more like a potential blueprint,
Yeah.
right? But there can be very proactive things having to do with health, lifestyle, diet
Yes.
to foster a completely different outcome.
Sure. Well, we've heard genetics loads the gun, and lifestyle and dietary choices can pull that trigger.
Yeah.
And also willingness, like we talked last week about willingness to let go of that stigma and seek treatment.
Yeah,
Things like
that's
that too.
huge.
So it can be a variety of things, but depression is often a neurological chemical imbalance. And so what we're trying to do is compensate for that imbalance by rebalancing the chemistry
The
of the
chemistry
brain.
out.
And so it
Okay.
can be done sometimes with medication and sometimes only with medication. There are people who do need medication. Sometimes it can be done through diet and exercise, and I think it often can be
Yeah.
if we will be
Like a mineral
proactive.
deficiency or some
Sure.
kind of deficiency.
Yeah.
There's also individuals, it's like the house is already on fire, the gas canisters have already exploded, and you need some immediate intervention.
Sure.
But if that's the plan that a healthcare professional coaches a family towards,
Yeah.
I'm always the advocate who says, now what can we do over time to get back to more of the natural?
Right.
Because in the long run, I don't want
Sustainability.
permanent, sustainable
Yeah.
medications, because medications in themselves often then begin to compete with our own body's natural process of trying to methylate,
Sure.
which we're not going to get into, but your body's natural process of wanting to digest something and then convert it into testosterone or
Right.
the thyroid. Is it happy? Is it a harmonious relationship with the
Right.
liver?
Optimized.
Medications can interrupt those signaling pathways in the body and give you these almost unquantifiable, impossible to diagnose or even trace back to which medication interacted with a second
makes a
medication.
lot of sense,
And then
yeah.
you need the third medication to counter what the two medications. But then
No,
those
yeah.
three medications all kind of create little offspring side effects because
Yeah.
you have what's called bio-individuality.
Yeah.
And what works phenomenal for Sarah may not work great for Tim.
No, exactly.
Does that make sense? Again, if the house is on fire, it may be like Allie said that
Yeah.
there are times where a medication or an antibiotic.
Absolutely.
If I get in a
has to.
vehicle wreck and radiator fluid shoots through my shoulder
Right.
because my shoulder is ripped open,
Right.
I may need during emergency care antibiotics right now to stave off gangrene.
Right.
Okay.
Sure.
But again, I'm always the advocate in the room for
Yeah.
post that initial putting out of the flames,
Yeah.
putting out of the runaway fire, the stitching back of the solder.
Seek that.
Long-term care, what am I doing about my mood? What am I doing about my health? What am I
Right.
doing about my body?
The
So
big picture.
does that make sense?
Oh,
I
it
hope
does.
that's clear and not
Yeah,
so
it does.
metaphoric that it
Yeah.
fails.
No,
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 it makes sense.
It does make sense.
And with depression, it gets confused with sadness. We've
Sure,
clarified that.
sure.
But it's a diminished capacity to appreciate reward stimulation. So things that would normally make a sad person feel better and feel cheered up, a depressed person will have a very minimal response to. And so what's funny is a lot of evolutionary scholars believe that depression is actually an evolutionary way of preserving our survival. Because with the warfare civilizations of historical times, when somebody would be defeated, they would kind of go and become very inactive and
Okay.
very subdued, and they would just kind of recover. And so that,
It's like Alexander wept because he had conquered everything and there was nothing left to accomplish.
Makes
Right?
sense.
that
Makes
or
sense.
after a defeat, you retreat and you recover and repopulate and just kind of keep
Lay
off to
low.
yourself. So
Yeah.
for what that's worth, that's kind of the evolutionary theory on depression. And that's where they believe that depression, because a lot of these things necessarily migrate out of human existence when they're
Sure.
not useful. So what's the point in depression? Well, that could be.
And to clarify,
Right.
you're not saying that you're a proponent of evolution as a species. We started with a rock hitting
No.
some atom somewhere. You just mean the
progression.
The progression, right, of a society, generation to generation.
Yes, why depression would have even come into existence and why it persists and why it's still there. And now, of course, it's been put into a new situation that has nothing to do with warfare and it's out of control.
Sure.
You know, our society doesn't have enough interaction with each other, and we're losing a game on that one right now. We're losing a big battle on that.
Well, a lot of people don't know that they're stuck in a state of fight or flight.
No,
Because of the pace of life today. You guys have heard that analogy drawn. I'll share it with you in case you haven't. But, you know, a grizzly bear busts through the front door and you were having dinner, right? So a grizzly bear busts through your front door. What happens? The first thing, your brain no longer cares. Hang on, I'll be with you in a second. I'm almost done with my pasta, right?
No.
Exactly.
You drop the food, immediately go up, you know, goosebumps on the back of your neck, your breath is arrested, your adrenals are pumping, da-dunk, da-dunk, da-dunk. And you immediately, everything, the room is spinning or slowed, immediately your adrenals have gone into this survival mode where you're looking maybe for a back door, maybe you're completely paralyzed with fear, or maybe if you're instinctive enough, you think to run. But whatever you were doing before that, you know, Netflix with a pasta, it is irrelevant.
Right.
Yeah.
Irrelevant.
Yeah.
Well, your brain shuts down digestion. It shuts down methylation. It shuts down all of the now processes of the body like testosterone production that can be postponed until we get out of this current crisis, right?
Right.
The problem is so many Americans now who are struggling with depression never get back out of grizzly bear fight or flight.
Yeah.
So the grizzly bear has been long since gone. Forest rangers chased him out domestically and harmoniously without injuring the grizzly bear and took him back to a reserve
No grizzly bears were hurt during the making
no
of
grizzly bears were hurt during the
Gave
use
him a
of this
snack.
analogy.
Right.
And the grizzly bear is at a reservation now to catch fresh fish and live harmoniously. Okay. But the point is, they never come back to a resting state.
Yeah.
It's like the pace of life for Americans in the year 2022 is one exponential nerve
Crisis.
reset after the next.
And then the next.
And so, so there's never so what is that doing? It means that we are always in a state of soft fight or flight.
Yeah.
Our sleep is interrupted.
Yeah.
Our digestion is
Yes.
interrupted. Our ability to get into REM quality dream sleep and to relax. Our ability to take devotions without something else distracting. Our phone is texting and, you know,
ding,
Billy
ding.
hit somebody at daycare again. Like, we're never able to reset. And so our body processes are never able to reset along with that rest, which now means that people that have begun to feel as though this is normal life are actually experiencing soft fight or flight all the time. And their body can't keep up, and so now they're depressed. And they don't know. They just think of themselves as a person who's got too much on their plate, they're tired, they've got too much responsibility, but this is normal. This is what it is. And to a degree, you know, being an adult, there's a lot of responsibility with a lot of that.
Yeah.
But we're also injuring ourselves at the pace of life and the use of technology. And
there's a deeper component to that too, which is where we see depression escalate into suicidal ideation. So if we think about this, you're talking about this grizzly bear situation, but if you think about, let's say that the grizzly bear doesn't get chased off right away and you're living in this fight or flight and you're trying to fight this grizzly bear, you're trying to survive this situation. All the rules, like you said, you don't care what you were eating and you were watching Netflix.
Right.
All the rules start becoming subjective to the back of your mind, continually working on how do I solve this problem. You don't care if you have to start a fire. You don't care if you have to break something. You don't care if you have to hurt someone else to defend yourself. You're trying to survive, and your brain will increasingly come up with more and more extreme answers to the problem when it can't escape the dilemma that it's facing. So for people who are increasingly depressed, part of their brain is working on how do I solve this problem? And eventually that feeling of entrapment under the complete oppression that depression brings with it. Suddenly, these things that a person previously may not have considered doing become fair game because they are trying to solve this problem, and those ideas creep in, and depression untreated goes further and further, can escalate, can become comorbid with other mental illness and other problems. And one of those things is suicidal ideations. It can creep its way in because the person is so trapped that the back of their mind works on things And their brain can slowly warm up to these unthinkable ideas because they're trying to solve a problem.
Wow.
And it's really unnecessary. It's a terrible travesty that we see suicidal both attempts and successes spiking continuously, when really it's an undiagnosed depression that could be combated either through some kind of natural means, through diet, through interaction with friends, or through medication, honestly.
And one of the biggest ones, and there just aren't enough people saying this, but a sovereign relationship with God the Father.
Absolutely.
We were meant, when we were designed by our Creator, we were meant to commune.
Yes.
We were meant to submit to a higher power.
Yeah.
So whether a person is running from this or not, whether they acknowledge it or not, despite their worldview, you cannot escape the need to be submissive to a sovereign.
Yeah.
If there is no sovereign, then there is no right and wrong. If there is no right and wrong, well, then I can be or do anything I want to do. There are no rules. And people were not hardwired to be able to cope with a reality that is self-navigated to any end that their imagination can manufacture.
Sure.
Right.
Absolutely.
This is where addiction comes in.
Absolutely.
Men with pornography, access to it on their cell phones.
Yeah.
You know that old saying, you give a mouse a cookie, he wants a glass of milk. You feed the monster of addiction, whatever it is, be it copious amounts of recreational drugs, or maybe it's a relationship.
Right.
Okay?
Or
The
multiple.
bottom line is you may be running from the acknowledgement when we're talking about the need for diet, the need for the right chemistry, the need for a
Right.
medication. We would be remiss not to point at the top of that pyramid the need to submit to a sovereign. We were hardwired for it, and until we understand that, we will never find our purpose.
That's true.
Because we'll never get past the question, why am I here?
Right.
Right.
Which is going to drive us to look for other
Right.
things
Other
to
things
titillate
to
ourselves
fill
with
and-
because we have no purpose.
Right. That's very
So
true.
to me, you cannot separate out the need to be submissive to a sovereign and to acknowledge that he is the creator and that he has purpose for your life.
Absolutely.
There's only one other road, and that is self-titillation and depression.
Yeah. We're going to have to take a break. But when we come back, I want to talk about what we can do as Christians and how we can use our communities to help fight this disease.
Millions of Americans are suffering a health crisis epidemic right now. Trouble with digestion, diabetes, chronic fatigue, hormone imbalances, depression, autoimmune disease, and more. The truth for many is that the real culprit of modern disease is simply a lack of vitally important nutrition. It is well established that the food we eat today has but just a fraction of the nutrition it once carried. Over the last 6 decades, there has been an alarming fall in nutrient density across the board, from fruits and vegetables to meat, dairy and eggs, due to soil depletion and intensive agricultural growing and harvesting methods. This means that less and less key nutrients like riboflavin, thiamine, niacin, fiber, copper, vitamin E, and phosphorus, just to name a few, are present in what we eat. What's worse, almost all of our food is laden with poisonous herbicides, pesticides, and antibiotics which destroy our body's microbiome, the health of our digestive tracts, where 80% of our immune system resides. In short, it means that we're not being nourished properly. And when you add the constant exposures to toxic chemicals we were never meant to ingest, our bodies are destined for the rise of disease and dysfunction. But what if I told you it didn't have to be this way? At Eden's Essentials, we provide the absolute best and cleanest nutrient-dense whole food supplements and personal care products on the market, derived directly from non-genetically modified foods, grown from clean soil, free of pesticides, herbicides, and biosediments to achieve the highest quality nutrition possible. So what is the Eden's Essentials difference? Well, many supplements on the market are packaged, labeled, and presented as healthy or even organic. But under the microscope, the ingredients may tell a different story. From expensive products being nutritionally void of what is advertised on the label, or using synthetic vitamins that our bodies struggle to absorb, to containing the same pesticides and herbicides we've already mentioned being used on foods, it's difficult to know what products are actually safe or as advertised. At Eden's Essentials, our products undergo a series of the most complete and rigorous raw material tests in the industry to ensure that our customers receive the highest quality bioabsorbable nutrition possible. We take pride in offering the most nutritionally dense supplements and the purest personal hygiene products available today. Our desire is to help serve the needs of everyday people so that they can achieve the highest degree of health possible. From our full-spectrum immunity-boosting fermented mushrooms, some of nature's most powerful antiviral nutrition, to our 100% fermented organic whole beetroot powder for cardiovascular support, and our special Eden's blood sugar support for assisting proper insulin regulation, you can nourish your body like never before. So revolutionize your health, maximize your immunity, and restore your vitality. Experience for yourself the Eden's Essentials difference and join the Eden's family. Visit edensessentials.com today.
Hey! Welcome back. Welcome back. So before we took the break, we were talking about addiction and all of these components to depression. And it makes me think about, we were talking about having a sovereign relationship with the Savior, Jesus Christ.
You have to.
Having a purpose, finding out what your purpose, your fulfillment in life is. And, in our community, we have a beautiful lady who does a lot of phenomenal work with addiction. And the interesting thing is as we're talking, is I'm seeing how these people are coming out of addiction, how mental health is becoming at the forefront of what's necessary, and how she's buttressing that with the right therapies and co-therapies, or putting them in places and resources and talk groups to get them held up on their depression and getting out of depression and getting deliverance from depression.
Yeah.
Can you speak to, how huge of a component is that in that community?
Well, I think that even more so than that community, with everybody in general and including that community, well, first of all, there are two things. Number one, our choices have such vital influence on the direction of our lives. It's bad in the sense that we have to work our way out of the consequences of choices that we've made, but it puts so much power back in our hands. I'm not the victim of my genetic makeup. I can choose to do this thing with my life.
Yes.
And second of all, during a certain shutdown period we had, during a certain virus epidemic, we saw alcohol sales spike 270% during that period of time.
Yeah.
Well, first of all,
couldn't go to church.
No.
Because that's dangerous, but the liquor store is safe.
I remember that.
Right.
And it's
so
good for you.
We see addiction coming up in its ranks, and we also understand that that's correlated to depression. So when we are alone and we are left to our own devices and isolated, there's a heightened level of things like addiction, depression, things like that. When we're together, we can carry each other. We need each other. We were created for community.
That's for sure. So last week we talked about some of the things that you can do, like co-therapies with talk therapy, group therapy.
We talked about diet.
Talked about your diet, nutrition. So what are some things, maybe, Allie, that we didn't really get to?
Well, it's interesting with seasonal affective disorder. That is actually usually treated with vitamin D therapy and light therapy. And so getting out in the sun, going places with your friends, or exercise is a great tool. It increases stimulation and circulation to the brain. It begins to revitalize parts of the brain which have become stagnant. It releases endorphins, which decrease signals carrying messages of pain, stress, depression, and anxiety. There's a correlation, actually, between depression and vitamin D shortage, which comes from the sun. So, but again, it comes back to that thing that I was kind of talking about last time, which is at that moment when you're the most depressed. It's the last thing you want to do. To get up and go move and go walk around in the sun. And you feel like nothing can help you in that moment, and you sure don't want to try. And so the biggest obstacle is actually within your mind. Are you willing to fight for yourself and reclaim that quality of life? And
a lot of people would say no, because at the point that they get to whatever they consider their floor, they already view themselves as a person with no value, which also is a total lie.
That's a lie.
Absolutely.
Because God created each one of you, and He's given you a purpose. If you're depressed, it is also possible you just have not discovered what it is that He's put you here to do.
That's true.
Do not believe the lie that you have no value and that everybody hates you and that you're not capable of anything, you're not attractive, you're not talented, whatever it is that you've bought from your circumstances. Abusive relationships. A lot of times you'll have one completely coherent, totally capable-bodied person, but they're in an abusive relationship, so they've been conditioned over time to believe that they have no value.
Their thoughts.
There's a million paths to people becoming depressed. The other thing about getting back to the exercise is oxygenation. So there have been a lot of studies that even showed that people suffering out a cancer diagnosis or chronic pain, that exercise actually improves a lot of the side effects of pain. even from some of the interventional treatments and stuff, the oxygenation, getting blood flow to those extremities. So there's a million reasons why exercise can improve your mood.
Even just taking a walk.
We talked about, even just taking a walk with friends.
Simple.
Psychological, it's you might think of it as cathartic. I like to go on a little motorcycle out in the woods and just drive around in the sunshine, you know.
Yeah.
But liver function, we talked a little, we've only got a couple minutes left, but very quickly, liver function, we talked about fight or flight.
Yeah.
So it blocks all of these body processes that need to eventually get back on track.
Right.
So your liver, if it's under duress, if you're stressed out when you eat, it can't properly help digestion organize what you've swallowed into the proper number of enzymes for the gallbladder to produce bile so that the liver can express bile to help you break down the food. So then you end up with conditions like leaky gut syndrome, which we don't have time, but all of those particles of undigested food become laborious for the liver to cope with.
Sure.
Well, that in and of itself can make you very angry.
Right.
A lot of people don't know that. Like people in natural medicine look at the liver as the mood center.
Yep, you're emotional.
Yeah, your emotional mood center. A lot of people that have just irrational rage, we don't know what sets him off, we don't know why she's so angry all the time, may want to look at a pragmatic plan to detox the liver.
That's so interesting to me. I really loved last week when you unpacked that little word picture. You need to go back and watch that, really, honestly, because show 1 will really help set up show 2. I want to thank you guys for being here. I mean, we could never do this justice, honestly. If you need help, please find help in your area. Call a local church, maybe Google some resources in your area. There is help out there. God loves you, and you have a purpose for being here, and you need to find that. I want to thank you again. Thank you, audience, for being here. I'm Sharice Parton. Thanks so much for spending part of your day with me. I want you to eat better, feel better, live better. We're going to learn more together next time on Return to Eden.
Hi there, I'm Brie Graffio with Eden's Essentials, and I'm here today with Daniel Belt, and we're going to talk to you today about our Eden's Fermented Turmeric and Ginger. Daniel, what can you tell us about our product today?
Yeah, so first, what turmeric is for. It has many properties outside of being just delicious. It is a common spice, but it's typically used for proper inflammatory responding. It's good for cardiovascular health. It's good for the liver. It has shown benefits to helping out with blood sugar as well. So it really addresses a variety of issues that are common today.
That's so great. Is there anything that you can tell us about what makes our formulation great and different from other formulations?
Sure. Turmeric works very well specifically with ginger, so that it's also in it. And then, again, a big asset to our products in specific, which is a common theme here, which is fermentation is king.
Absolutely.
It's fermented, and when we put it through that process, it unlocks the nutrients that are in the spices in order to make them more bioavailable to us. And in that process, other nutrients are created as well that provide a wide range of nutritional benefits and health benefits across the board. And that would be the main reasons that it's really good.
Absolutely, I agree. Thank you. Now, you could go to the grocery store and start to incorporate some organically grown turmeric and ginger, or of course, you can call us at 1-800-652-7168 or order online. And of course, if you have any questions, please feel free to email us at info@edensessentials.com. Thank you.